everybody on the square. Andrew Marston here again with another episode of the Community Spotlight interview series where we get to know members of the square a little bit better. And today we have the privilege of being joined by School of Motion's one and only senior motion designer, Kyle. Oh my gosh, it looks like a guitar. It looks like... What? There he is.
That's the best I could do for a creative introduction.
Yeah.
It's still morning right now, so
Well, you get an A+ for effort. That counts for something.
I bent at the waist. Okay, that is the standard, folks.
Well, Kyle, thank you for being here. I appreciate your time. Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on here, and thank you for doing these. I think it's really cool that you started doing these, and then I don't have to.
Yeah. That's. I'm here for you, Kyle. I thought, what is it from Kyle's job that I can just outsource to myself?
Perfect.
You're the School of Motion's senior motion designer.
That's what they say.
What does that mean? What does a senior motion designer at School of Motion do?
Yeah. If you figure it out, let me know. Yes, my title is Senior Motion Designer, so I make some motion design stuff. I've created several of the graphics for the live streams and, some ads and other stuff. But we have other people on staff like Frank and Sarah that have been doing some of those lately too. Some of the stuff they just put out lately, super cool. But I have mostly been doing like our live streams that you've seen here on the square and on YouTube. I've done some tutorials. I've done some of the big weird campaigns like Mogurt Madness, and I drove a lot of the MoGraph games. That was the more public facing thing that kind of built off some of that, Mogurt Madness. Obviously, I was helping steer and kind of being the face of season 1 of the 15-minute MoGraph. Ryan was working on a lot of that too in the background, and then I'm glad that he kind of took the driver's seat for season 2, as it were. So I don't know, whatever weird things I put together, the scholarship, a lot of the scholarship course stuff, special projects that happen. I don't know.
Yeah, I see a pattern here. Like, I do these interviews. You don't have to. Ryan does the 15-minute.
I just leave a trail of destruction behind me.
Yeah, I mean, I'll leave people to conclude what they may. No, and let's back up though. Let's get the Kyle Hamrick origin story, birth to this moment.
Yeah.
Just fill in all the gaps for us. How did you get here?
Well, I was going to come up with some kind of creative lie, but I'll just be real. I don't know. I grew up in Kansas City, where I still live because it's a pretty nice place. Every year when it gets cold, I sort of wish that I had moved somewhere else, but otherwise it's a really nice place.
And fiber internet. We were talking about that before.
It's on like my primary defining characteristic. So
is your internet speed?
Uh-huh.
That's the first thing I thought when I saw you on streams. That guy looks like he has fast internet for sure.
Fast internet.
Yep. Or it was really what did that was the 80s background and the motion design, the hotline with Evan Abrams. I was like, whoa, is that what fiber looks like? But back on track. Yeah, Kansas.
Yeah, let's see. Okay. So, let's see. I mean, things that I think are probably relevant to this discussion. I was like making dumb videos with my friends in high school and stuff. Back in the days when everything was hand cranked, right?
Oh yeah.
These were on actual tapes, though. I do actually have. I recently had a bunch of these transferred. So I have some of them sitting around in a container.
Oh,
right here.
Nice.
Yeah, look at these bad boys.
Brings me back.
And all of my, embarrassing high school videos are safely on this, a bunch of VHS tapes in this Tupperware container instead of on YouTube. Anyway, so, I did that for a while. I was lucky enough to go to a high school that, had had money and we had like a video production program, so we made stuff in there, and like we had an early like nonlinear edit system in there, and even a computer with After Effects on it, though I didn't use it quite yet. But I went to film school at KU. Technically theater and film at the time, but that's okay because I had a lot of theater background, mostly technical as well, which is probably, I don't know. I've ended up doing a lot of, live or like creating stuff for live things, which theater background probably helps with a lot of that, like knowing how to prep for live stuff and know how to create those contingencies and stuff like that. But anyway, I did that. I worked at a couple different places, ad agencies and production companies and stuff for about 5 years. Kind of learned what to do, what not to do. Ended up going freelance, which was like I created a company with a couple other colleagues of mine, and we had that for 8 years, I want to say. But I was always kind of like semi-freelance during that time too. 2019, I formed my own just solo company because I was looking at the projects that had been coming in, and like I looked at 2018, I think it was, yeah, and like 80% of the work that I had done, if not more, was stuff that came to Kyle and not like stuff that my partners had gotten and sent my way. So I was like, okay, I think I see what probably needs to happen here.
Yeah.
So then I was my own entity for a little while, and then I sort of stumbled into, becoming full time at School of Motion after having been a TA for 4 or 5 years prior to that.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people who watch this had you or know you from TAing in one of their courses. What courses have you TA'd? I know you've done Expression Session, and what else is on the list?
Yeah, so I TA'd, let's see. I started by kind of auditing the first session of After Effects Kickstart, and then I TA'd that several times after, 5 or 6 times. And they kept asking me to do some of the more advanced courses, and I was like, okay. I ended up like doing the first session of several courses. So I did the first session of Photoshop and Illustrator Unleashed. I did the first session of Expression Session and a couple of those afterwards. I maybe did something else too.
How did you go from TA to full-time staff senior motion designer?
I don't know. I mean, in the meantime, I had done a handful of tutorials and stuff for School of Motion. I'd kind of like worked on a few things with them. And so, I mean, we'd kind of been talking a little bit. I don't know. It just sort of worked itself out.
This reminds me of your Motion Hatch interview where, is it Haley? The Motion Hatch girl, Haley, was like, you seem to know everybody and you're, well-respected and known in the industry. How did that happen? And you're kind of like, I don't know.
How it is? Yeah.
Yeah. I think also a lot of people probably know you from Motion Design Hotline, Evan Abrams.
I hope so.
He's got a popular channel. You were prominent figure on that for a while.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. How did that come about? Who, like, you just pressured Evan to put him on?
So, as part of that whole like freelance period and all that, I had started doing presenting at conferences, particularly like in person at After Effects World and Adobe Video World, which are run by the same company, and Post Production World at NAB. And Evan and I met at an NAB, and we were just kind of hanging out and talking about, I think mostly we were talking about like playing Dungeons and Dragons and how we kind of wanted to find a way to like use our After Effects skills to do something cool with that. And somehow that turned into us making Motion Design Hotline, which for those who didn't watch it, is kind of like Car Talk for After Effects, but most of you probably don't know that reference. Basically, it was like a call-in show. We would have the first 10 minutes. It was a live stream we did over the period of about 2 years and 2 seasons. we would have the first 10 minutes or so kind of planned as a demo, and that was kind of the theme of the show. But then we were just like, hey, send us questions, before the show or during the show, and we'll just figure it out. After Effects stuff.
I mean, you had quite a few guests on as well. Those are usually... There was one with the After Effects team that was particularly interesting.
Yeah, that was super cool.
Oh, and I forgot to ask you completely, where can people find your work online, Kyle?
Kind of all over the place. I do have a website, kylehamrick.com, KYLEHAMRICK, but you'll probably put it up, whatever. I apologize in advance. I don't do a super great job of keeping up with my website because I'm not really looking for a job or freelance clients right now. And honestly, I wasn't super great about keeping up with it earlier either, because I was kind of existing in that space where, I was freelancing, but I was getting almost all my stuff from either like repeat clients, referrals, other motion designers, referrals from other motion designers, stuff like that. So like, honestly, I mean, I haven't had a real cut for several years here because it was just working out, and I was staying busy enough that I didn't really need to. Like, I knew that I should, and I could kind of direct my I could direct my path a little better, and I could be choosier about clients and projects and stuff, but it just kind of never happened.
Yeah, I was trying to find a reel of yours, and I was like, huh.
Yeah, you don't want the one you found.
Let's go to the section where we talk about a project. Can you talk about this thing you have pulled up?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I already did talk about this on our very first School of Motion live stream. I'll play through it once with the audio and then maybe turn it down and let it loop or something. So this is the intro for Spotlight, which is one of the... we've come up with a couple concepts for live streams, which is mostly my fault. I don't know. I felt like I needed to put things into buckets, which, I think has mostly made sense. We have ended up not using Spotlight quite as many times as I would have wanted, but it ended up really handy. So I'll play this and we'll talk for a second.
That's awesome. Which guy on Fiverr did you get to make that for you?
Yeah. It was this guy who spent some time putting this together. And tried to make it so it's like, and again, Ryan Plummer did kind of help me with some of the ideas on this. And I did talk through this process, the very first School of Motion live stream that I was visibly involved in. Joey and I are talking about Millinote, but also kind of the pre-production process. But just to kind of step through this, you can see we're like looking through all this work, and some of it's like pretty generic, right? I actually created a bunch of like randomized compositions here with just shapes. I don't know how you can't see them super well, but the spotlights are looking around, and then we find this cool thing, which is obviously customizable per person. And then there's this cool like explosion here, which is really fun to build. And then, there's like this little like rocket logo takeoff. As I'm looking at this, looks like maybe a layer that needs to have the thing turned on. This is the first one I made, so it's possible I missed something in this, like 2 frames of this thing being on. And then obviously we have a customizable portrait of our guest. So these are kind of intended to be ones that are more like interviewee, featuring somebody. And then we ended up, I repurposed this just recently for our, where is it? Student showcase shows.
Yep.
Pick 3D animation or design. Which one?
Animation.
Okay. So that would be this. You can see I just kind of updated a little bit there, so it ended up being like the perfect fit for that thing. And then I didn't have to make something new. It got to be something cool because we wanted the showcases to be cool, and I was like, perfect.
Did you stop using the Spotlight title?
We haven't had another one since then anyway.
I was thinking maybe it's because I stole it for the community Spotlight on the Square. You guys.
Well, I kind of stole Spotlight too, because when I was coming up with these different buckets, it's like, well, we've got workflow show to talk about like technical stuff, tools, tips, and techniques for motion design, as I decided to, brand it. I remember to say that sometimes. And then spotlights for like talking to people, although I think I've only done 4 episodes of that. And then, it made sense to do this. And then because I am me and I do stuff like that, I also came up with the anchor point that we haven't done as many of, just because we weren't quite getting the viewership for live streams on the Square. Right. But, this still exists, and I very much want to keep this rolling at some point. It just needs to kind of like find the right, let the stars align again.
You seem to do a lot with not just School of Motion, but like you did Motion Design Hotline, and you do a lot with Adobe, it sounds like, for live stream stuff. Like, is that, I don't know, like, is that on purpose? You really into the live stream scene, or like, how did that come about? Because you kind of seem pretty visible in that way.
Yeah, I guess I have been. So, like I mentioned, I've been doing the live presentations for several years now, which kind of grew out of me running a user group here in my city as well. And I like that live energy, and I like creating tutorials, and I've got some that are coming out right now. One dropped yesterday as we're filming, but there's like a 3-part series, whatever. You've maybe seen a recorded Kyle tutorial.
I've seen a couple.
I can definitely spend a lot of time obsessing about details in those, whereas with live stuff, like, I just have to prepare myself and then go. And I kind of like the energy of that and the looseness of that.
There's also quite a bit, in my opinion, there's more authenticity of the live presentation, where everybody accepts if you have some sort of misspeak or something. Do you enjoy the energy you get from the audience at I feel like the energy at a convention is probably a little different than you streaming to
to a camera lens. Yeah. I do miss the energy of a live room. I do think I'm like a little bit of an energy vampire in that way, and I feed off a crowd a little bit at least. Which is weird. Only when I am like comfortable, though. I mean, I something like karaoke is way outside my comfort zone. But like, with After Effects, I know what I'm doing. I'm confident there. I have my stuff prepared, so that's my security blanket.
Yeah. So completely relevant. If you were forced under pain of death to do karaoke, what song would you choose?
Well, I have before in my life.
Wow. Pain of death.
Yeah. I would think the thing that has been most visible was that I participated in unsurprisingly, in a group performance of Toto's Africa at the meetup that I helped organize pre-Blend, last time Blend happened. So we'll go with that.
Nice.
Even though I don't really like the song that much. It's a little cliche, a little much, but in that context, it was fun.
Yeah. Well, this was super relevant, and I'm glad that we talked about it.
Me too. Yeah.
Anyway, so highlights and lowlights is the next thing on my outline, just to steer this ship in the right direction. So usually I have people give a lowlight from their career so far. It doesn't have to be something like big and tragic that you don't want to share. Whatever you feel comfortable. It could be a funny story or something. Sometime you made a mistake and learned something from it. What does anything come to mind for a lowlight so far in your career?
Sure, there's plenty of those. Freelance for 10 years, and I guarantee you will encounter many. I've had plenty of like crappy clients who didn't want to pay or didn't want to be cooperative in whatever part of the process. I told one recently on Motion Hatch. Haley had asked people for like client horror stories, and I had one where a partner of mine had kind of been given the okay to do a bunch of expensive revisions, and then turned out that person didn't really have the ability to say okay. But probably if I were going to tell a story about a low light, it might be when the company I was working for, one of the owners, I mean, the place was it was known to be a little chaotic. Trying to like trim some of the extraneous stuff here. One of the owners basically skipped town and like left the country for some point with everyone's paychecks.
Nice.
And we also found out that he hadn't paid anyone's health insurance for the previous month, and that bankrupted that company. The remaining owner reformed like what was left of the company like within a couple weeks. This was also like late. This was like early December. And,
Perfect timing for
right,
all
exactly.
this. Yeah.
So the remaining person kind of reformed the thing, although it quickly became clear for those who didn't already know that he was just as much the problem. He just hadn't been as overt about it. So it sort of worked out because I was aware of that chaos, and I forgot to ever sign any contracts with this new company that was formed, which worked out okay for me. So
awesome.
I don't know how many lessons you should take away from there.
I hope School of Motion is a little change of pace from that environment.
Yeah, like, that was the last place I worked before I was my own boss for 10 years, if that tells you anything too.
Before we move on, I think, and before I forget, do you want to, or would you mind explaining the trophies behind you?
It was a project. The Emmy is from a project that I did with a longtime client who's based here in Kansas City. It's like a regional entrepreneurial fellowship organization, which doesn't sound very exciting, but they I'd been doing like a live event for them for several years. It's kind of a big like gala event. And the person that was running it for several years, she had a lot of big creative ideas. And so that event became a big thing that we poured a lot of effort into. And as part of that, we started making like these films about some of the people who'd gone through the program and were doing like interesting and inspiring things. And so the project that came from is it's like a 16-minute documentary about these four people, kind of interwoven stories and the cool stuff that they're doing. So that you can find the link on my website if you are so inclined.
Hey, congratulations on your Emmy win.
Thanks. Yeah. And just to be clear, it's a regional Emmy, so it's not like I was up against Game of Thrones or whatever. But
we don't have to tell people that. You know?
Well, I just did.
Okay. And the second part of lowlights and highlights is obviously a highlight. Can you think of a highlight from your career so far that stands out?
I mean, the last couple of years have been pretty okay. Joining School of Motion's been pretty cool. I did get to create a project for Adobe. I created it originally almost 2 years ago at this point, but that project, which here, if you give me a second, I'll pull it up. There we go. Okay. So this later had to be revised because the After Effects logo changed, which I have feelings about. But this project, which I'll crank up because the audio is delightful as well. I made it for Adobe as a benchmarking project, and they ended up using it internally for a long time as they were building out the multi-frame rendering. And then you may have seen this kind of as the face of multi-frame rendering in beta and like as they were launching it. A lot of the screenshots and the demos and stuff were using this. And in the keynote recap at Max just a couple weeks ago, there was a little bit of this in there too. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'll play this for you. Oh, this is version B.
Whoa.
Which is a little different.
Yeah, we don't. This is the part that not everybody gets to see.
Yeah.
Nice logo.
So they had me make two different versions so that we could try out different effects and stuff. So yeah, I'm glad I accidentally grabbed that.
Can you? Would you mind scrubbing through and maybe just talking about some of them, like the core concepts that are going on?
Sure,
especially through that Zoom tunnel. There's like a lot going on.
Let me open. Well, you can see the color shift here because the logo changed, so we had to kind of update it for this new bluer logo. So it started out, and again, I have talked through this. One of my Adobe Max, on my website, you will find stuff about this. I think probably looks like this or something. And I do talk through it a little bit on there. And then one of my 2019 Adobe Max sessions focuses largely on using this to kind of explain more advanced After Effects concepts. But I basically, I was charged with like, can you make us a benchmark project that looks cool, basically? We want it to be, not crazy heavy, but kind of heavy, and be complex enough that it uses a bunch of different effects, specifically like the GPU accelerated effects. So, the list that existed at the time, I made a list of all of them, and I used almost all of them. There were just a few that I didn't hit. I will take a second. If you didn't appreciate the soundtrack, it's made primarily from the render chime and the goat noise when you fail by Wes Slover and Joe Basile. Wes is Sono Sanctus, who I think recently changed their name a little bit to just Sanctus or something. But and Joe is thechicken.net. They're both super talented audio folks. Anyway, so there was a little bit of back and forth, like working through the audio and stuff. Some things were inspired by that and vice versa. But, we have a keyframe. We click through here. These are, I don't feel like, there's a thing or two that maybe changed because this used to, this is Adobe's version of the project.
Oh.
And these were extruded, which they maybe opted to turn off. I wonder if I have my version. Okay. I have a folder full of like 40 renders of this because it was a benchmark project. Let me see. I'm just kind of like going back and seeing what I have here. These are all, okay. Here's V1. So this would be a Kyle version. Yeah. So I was using the one of the extruders here. Yeah, we'll just use this version. Hey, apparently I can click through these now, or click through these. Okay.
Yeah. So
I kind of just decided to make it like a love letter to After Effects, and so you'll see a lot of the iconography in here. Some of them are pretty subtle. Like you'll have the little like RAM preview buttons. Obviously the eyeball. Stopwatches. There's bounding box here. There's like
the rulers,
tick marks, and you can guess how I made those.
Screenshot.
A text layer.
Oh, of course.
Because I'm weird. There's quite a few text layer things in here. Obviously, we have our CTI. We have a bunch of the twirl little arrow. We've got some, Bezier. Specifically like the graph editor here. And then a bunch of keyframes and the Bezier tool, like bringing everything, sucking it back into the After Effects logo. So beautiful. I kind of just tried to cram in as much stuff as I could here.
What's that? What's that background? It's like a foliage or like a fractal?
Yeah. So another one of the like stipulations was that we wanted to have a piece of footage in here, but something that could be changed easily. So that like some of these initial things ended up, not being as important for the way it ended up being used, like when it became public. But we wanted to be able to make it so that users could like A, B different kinds of footage in here. So this is a clip of arugula that was one of the Adobe stock free things.
Yeah.
And so I was like, the collection that they said, like, yeah, you can use this. It was mostly gardening clips. And I was like, okay, I'm not sure how to make that work. But then I did. I was just like, I mean, that's got texture. If you look, it's very like mirrored
Yeah. Like
and
a
stuff. I
kaleidoscope.
just kind of made it. That also in my head made the most sense for like this way people can switch it to other things and it'll still just be kind of abstract and textural. So
It turned out awesome.
well,
How
thank
long
you.
did this take you?
I probably kept track somewhere.
Oh, I mean,
I don't know.
a matter of like, it doesn't look like it would take a couple days, but like, I'm wondering, did it take like weeks or
Yeah, we'll
months?
say weeks. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I hope Adobe was happy. It seems
Yeah,
like they
very
were.
very much so. Yeah, I mean, they used it as the face of multi-frame rendering, which is, pretty cool.
Pretty, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, all right. Well, I think I've kept you long enough. Let me land this plane, which is like the only metaphor that ever comes to my mind when I'm actually recording. I think of all these other
Yeah.
ones outside, but then it's always land the plane.
I've used it myself too.
Yep. Well, as we're coming in for a landing, Kyle,
Yeah.
is there anything else that you would like to say to the Square community, advice or otherwise?
Gosh, what can I say that I didn't already get Polly Shore to say?
Okay. I would expect nothing less.
Yeah, if you weren't here when we launched the Square, we had several cameo videos that we got to do.
Yeah.
You can thank Joey for this silly idea, but I scripted a lot of those or helped script a lot of those. Yeah. Anyway, look back and find those because some of them are pretty special.
Paula Abdul.
Yeah.
Yeah, jeez, that was the best.
Maybe, I mean, there's a career highlight. I got Paula Abdul to give us an After Effects tip.
It was like never in my life will that happen. Something like that happen again. I'm like, because I was watching it, I'm like, no way is she. Oh yeah, they made her go through the technical stuff too. It was great.
I'm surprised she did it.
Yeah.
The thing is, if you're writing a cameo, you basically get like a tweet to tell them what to say, and most of the time you're just like, say happy birthday to Bob or whatever, and they riff on it. But like, if you want them to say specific stuff, you have to get it in there, and it's interesting. I think EJ was pretty thrilled when we got Montel Jordan, who does a great cameo, by the way, to sing about using the tune shader.
I wonder what these stars think while they're doing these, like
I think they think cha-ching.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. I know we've again wildly veered off topic. Hey, thanks for watching these, and big thanks to Andrew for making these. I think just like being involved in a community, the school of motion community, the motion design community in general, and stuff like that. I think that kind of stuff is really important. I feel like just doing that kind of stuff is a big part of how I ended up where I am. Like being helpful on forums or groups or Slacks or whatever it is, being generous with your time, and being cool to work with and stuff like that. Those are really important. And, I don't know, finding ways to use the things that you can do to help like hype other people too is really cool. That's the thing I've been trying to do with our School of Motion live streams. And I'm glad that you kind of have picked up the baton here and decided to kind of run with it because I'm doing all these other crazy projects. So yeah, I'm glad that you're keeping stuff running here on the Square, so I don't have to.
Yeah, I only take like 10% from your salary is what
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
Good.
what I heard. Yeah,
Yep.
good. Okay.
The check's in the mail.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been checking for a couple months. I'm sure it'll arrive sometime.
It's that we've got all kinds of like the shipping issues and stuff. So
Yep.
I did once. Another. She's taken a couple school emotion courses. Jessica Thomas. Um, I had worked with her several times when I was freelancing and stuff, and I did once send her a check. She lives in Alaska,
Oh.
and it disappeared somewhere. It's when they had an earthquake a few years ago, and the check disappeared, and so I ended up sending her another one, and it showed up like a few months later, looking. I'm just going to say this because she lives in Alaska, but it looks like a bear had ripped it in half. Um, so it happens.
It happens. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I accept PayPal and direct bank transfer, but
No.
check's fine, Kyle. Cool.
Yeah. Well, I assumed you would want to frame it instead of cash it.
After I take a picture of it on my Bank of America app.
There you go.
Then I'll frame it.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Well, this has been fun, Kyle. Thank you. Thank you for doing this.
Of course. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you for thanking me.
Yeah. Well, I'm very welcome.
Okay. I'm going to hit stop recording.